Welcome back to the video. This is going to leave off where I was in the prior video. So, just jumping in, um, when I was between 5 and 12 years old, as I'd mentioned, I was going to school and my parents divorced. My father was working in a different area, but he was really never involved. So, I had the single parent, my mother, and as I had mentioned, because of everything that was happening, I was alone and I was unsupervised. The people that were supposed to be in charge of me, they weren't. But I had my grandmother, who was pretty much my family's rock, I want to say. Her and my grandfather really took care of us, instead of me constantly having to just walk from school to go back home or do whatever I was doing. She would come and she would pick me up, and after a while it would get kind of annoying because I really wasn't able to go out and hang out with friends or do stay after school for the group activities because we couldn't afford it. So pee wee football. I had someone in my neighborhood who would do that, and I would always try to go out and say, hey, pick me because I was a good athlete, or at least I was very much into being active, and I got passed. I got overlooked even when I was at school. We would go out for lunch, play basketball, or play anything on the playground. And I wasn't definitely the person who was picked first. We had always the popular kids, we'll say, or the people that had more of that type of entitlement. So I just stuck to myself and kind of kept things on the low key. But because I had grown up with these individuals, a lot of times they would still pick on me or bully me. And I had this dog before that my sister found because, like I said, she was my older sister. She was always out on the streets, or more or less just out and about, hanging out with friends, doing drugs, doing all types of things, being very very reckless. And that played a heavy influence on me as I got, you know, uh, 10 years old, of the age of 10 and older. But because of all the fighting that was occurring, or the situations that were happening when I was in elementary school, the principals and everyone, they had literally a stack of stuff, paperwork, or written complaints, or all types of things. And at that time when I got the dog, which my sister had found, it was a black chow dog. Her name was Duchess, and I really loved that dog a lot. And I cared about that dog a lot. And what ended up really transpiring was, the dog would do what dogs do. They want to get out, they want to be free, they want to do whatever they want. And because I was not always there really to, take care of the dog, eventually the dog did go somewhere, and basically my parents went and killed the dog, or my mother, I should say, because my father wasn't really ever around. I still love my dad, I still love my mom, regardless of what they've done to me, because without them, I wouldn't have been able to be a better person. Um, at the same time, you know, as I forgive them and stuff, I realize that whatever they've done is not something that I wanted to include in my future. So when the dog disappeared, I was kind of like, whoa, like what happened, And of course, they didn't tell me, right? They didn't tell me. But in between the time when my father was around and not, there was particular instances where, like, one time we were sitting at we were going to have family dinner, and my dad got very upset at me, and he threw a fork at me, and it stabbed into my side, and I still have the scar. And even another instance, my father didn't like that my room wasn't clean, so he went in there and basically threw me off the bed, started beating me up, and told me to clean up my room. And that a lot of those things also started to affect me and my siblings, because we would then fight each other or take things out. And then the dog situation that had transpired was kind of an accumulation, like something I really cared about was taken away from me, and I didn't understand what was really going on, because I was being pulled and put in so many different situations that it affected me even when I was at school. And because of a lot of the kids, as I've stated, I grew up with through kindergarten or through different classes. Not all of them were still in the same class or with me up until a certain grade, but these individuals, when I was hurt, when I was talking about my dog or things like that, a lot of them would still try to bully me. And in fact, I had one student who got me so upset. I was across the room that I just stood up and I walked over to him and I just punched him directly in his face and watched him start crying like a kid, because I was done with that. I was not willing to let someone not only disrespect me, but also disrespect something that I truly, truly loved. And they thought that it was funny. Well, it wasn't funny, and they found out the hard way. And of course, I got in trouble. But at this point, we're talking between fourth and sixth grade. At this point, I've already had everybody do whatever. I've had the teachers say whatever, the principals say whatever. At this point, it didn't even matter. They can send me home, great. My parents aren't going to care. And one instance too is even before, in a prior grade, this happened where I brought, like, I don't know, maybe so, something to do with nails, maybe nail clippers or something like that. But the principals are said that basically I brought something to stab someone, and I'm like a little kid. So to be honest, I don't know if that was true or not. Maybe not. I was too young to understand that. And if that was true, that wasn't good, and I probably shouldn't have done that. And I accept all the responsibilities and accountability for whatever I have done, knowing and unknowingly, because that's just how I am. Um, so that was part of, like, one of the things, whether I did something or I didn't do something, it was all still being added up. And eventually those popular kids were like, oh, he's fighting back, so now we should fight him. So I remember, the four. I know their names. I could call them out if I want, but they don't even deserve any credit. They don't deserve nothing, because in fact they were just a positive, or they were a negative influence that created positivity, created more of my character development, and it took me a long time to understand how some of those circumstances could improve that. But by the time I was like in fifth or sixth grade, I mean, these were the kids where I'd see them with brand new Jordan 13s, or they lived the perfect life. I had this kid that was nearby, and his family, they would always go out on their boats and stuff like that. And sometimes the kid would make me upset. And one time I even went and took a marker and I drew on his parents' boat. And it is what it is. And unfortunately, that was a mistake that I made, and I shouldn't have done that. Now, realizing that as an adult, um, and another student that I went to school with, his parents were very, very much kind of the same thing. I remember he had an older sister who was kind of cool, and one time, I would always go and try to hang out with kids in my neighborhood because I had nothing else to do, and I was definitely the outcast from all of them, and that explains why I was bullied and picked on, and I alluded to how I got the wind knocked out of me at one time, or plenty of other things that I haven't named. But a lot of these behaviors not only affected me, but then I started to affect people that I truly care about. And, you know, it got to a point where I was being, I want to say, constantly harassed in a way by not only people that were in my life, closest to me, my family members, but also the students at school and even the people that were in my neighborhood. And, then I'd have, my grandmother and stuff, and they would always want the best for me, but I was just like, so rebellious, or just trying to like get away from so many different things that, I even hurt her. And even when I would go over and enjoy, spending time at her house, which was always kind of like a sanctuary, for us to kind of get away, because we'd have to just wait until or I'd have to wait until someone picks me up, and there wouldn't be anyone to pick me up. Whether I did sports as I got older, my parents never really went to watch me compete. They never, cheered me on to some extent. There was a circumstance at one point where, I was doing like track and field, and, I would just I would be the person in last place. Last place, right? And they would just cheer me on just to finish, and that was I appreciate that. That's a core memory that I always keep with me. That regardless of what you do, you just got to finish. Doesn't matter if you're first or last. The fact is, you finished. Um, and so, because of a lot of those things that were happening when I was at my grandparents' house, I just wanted to be active, and so I would go outside. And a a decent property at one time where there was a pool, and then eventually they got rid of that because pools take a lot of maintenance to keep up, and they moved to a different spot. And so we would go to one spot, and then we would go to this other one, which was much bigger, and it was cool because they'd have like trees you can climb on, and they had some chickens and things like that. But it was still within the city. And, because of my behaviors that were being projected onto all the people that were around me after being projected on me, I would be using so much profanity and so much anger, and, just whatever you can imagine is pretty much what I was doing. And, my grandfather would even tell me to get the hell out of here or go somewhere else or whatever. And he was a chill guy. All he wanted to do was sit back, take a nap, listen to AM radio once in a while, news talk, and drink a beer. That was it. He was chill. He was a great great grandfather, and I have a whole lot of respect for him. And I wish that I had treated him, now knowing a lot of these things as an adult. I wish I would have done things, in a different light, or at least expressed more of how I cared about him. And, that's just something that I have to, I've come to terms with, and I forgive him, and I hope that he can forgive me. And, even after a lot of those experiences, they never gave up on us, or wanting us to be, in a safe space. Um, and so, because things were surmounting, or just adding to the fire, now that I'm getting, 10 years old, between 12 years old, there's not only fighting that's happening within my family, between my family members, people at school, people that are in my community, but then also because my sister, my older sister, not my oldest, but my older sister, because the oldest had at that time, they're a few years older than me, so they've already kind of been teenagers or going into high school and things like that. And they would fight each other too, you know, but because of all of those things happening, now I'm getting so out of control between 10 and 12 years old that as soon as I went into middle school, literally almost, not even 3 months into it, I've already gotten into a fight. I already have people telling that I'm going to, commit all these crimes or that I threaten them for their lives. Now, personally, that could have happened. Um, there's so much going on that I don't know. But it's not as if I just walked up to someone and said, "Hey, I'm gonna threaten you because of whatever reason." It's more of like people that actually deserve in some way to be held accountable. We're not, and because